Excuse me, great. I will call the meeting to order. Sorry. Board member Shirley Atkins, present. Board member Chair Amanda Houston here. Board member Julia Kitely here. Board member Suzanne Unihan, absent. Board member Tim O'Leary.
Here.
And Vice Chair and Student Commissioner Katie Ward. Excused. Library Director Corey Burkle.
Here.
Staff note taker Audrey Smith present. Okay, so we are looking over the consent calendar. If anyone wants to make a motion for the second.
I move that we accept the consent calendar as presented.
I'll second that motion. Do you have any public comments?
We have no public comments tonight,
Then moving on to library narratives.
which sorry about that. I forgot to get those out to you. I just realized that today. So I sent them out as an email, but then I also printed them off too because I sent them out kind of late. They're pretty sweet. There's a cute little picture that somebody drew on the back. Isn't that fun?
Fitting into the library.
Right? I love it. One of the narrative or one of the advocacies in there talks about the read-alongs, which is a brand new library collection. So I'll have to bring that in next time to show you as a library resource, but they're super fun if you want to check one out for your kids.
Cool.
But yeah.
Right, we're moving on to the library foundation report.
So
Have a meeting.
we have not had a meeting yet. We have a meeting on, I think, December 10th.
And the library director's report.
Library director's report. Let's see. It's been rather busy. We have replaced Dylan's position as a circulation supervisor with someone named Alexis. She will start on December 10th as well. And we're excited to have her. She has some planned vacation. So we'll see her after she's finished with that. We had another circulation position open up unexpectedly. So that was too bad. We didn't have 2 weeks notice before somebody left. So for that one, we can't start recruitment until the beginning of December because of city staff moving back into City Hall in the next couple of weeks. They put a pause on that until the beginning of December because HR is heavily involved in that. So when December comes around, we'll be ready for that circulation position. We'll get it started then. Until then, at the moment, we're 80 hours short in circulation, which is a lot of hours. That left us with 50 hours of people who could work. And you can't just have the same 2 people here the entire day when you also need breaks and lunches. So as you saw in the email that I sent out, I reduced hours on Tuesdays and Wednesdays by 2 hours each day for a total of 4 hours. I'm expecting that will stay in place through the month of January as people are trained. But I'm hoping by the beginning of February, we can open those hours back up again. But I can't commit to that or anything. So, but we'll do our best. So the team has been working great, pulling together like they always do. And our on-call staff has been very useful, and our volunteers have been taking on some extra duties and have been great as well. So yeah, we're making it work. It's a little, hi, Suzanne.
Yeah.
That's okay. So I think that's pretty much my big news. So
Great, so moving on to library friends report.
library friends, that was a really busy Tuesday for me. So I I gave them my report, but didn't stay to hear what was going on with them. But they're doing great. They are still bringing in money from the library for all their hard work, selling items online and selling items in the lobby. So they're continuing to do well.
Do you know if they're doing an end of year appeal? I think the past couple of years you've done one in the nice library newsletter.
It will be in the
Will
library
it?
newsletter. Yeah.
Okay, so moving on to unfinished business.
State library report. I mentioned it last time briefly. I said I was working on it. So I also wanted to print it out because it's a very comprehensive look at the library, maybe more comprehensive than you want. But this is a report that all public libraries in the state of Oregon are required to do. So it's a lot of statistics, but it also helps you get a picture of how the library is doing and how the library compares with other libraries as well. Of course, that part we won't know until I think February is when that report comes out. So I'll send you that link online. It resides at the state library. So you'll be able to go through and then you'll be able to compare like-sized libraries and see how people are doing in different areas, which is, I think, really helpful and interesting if you like that kind of thing. So
The libraries, this report for the other libraries too.
in probably February or so.
Yeah.
So they put together a lot of data. So you can go in there and look at really specific things side
Yeah.
by side,
Oh,
which is
cool.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that report is always due at the very end of October. And then a few months later is when the other one comes out. Yeah. So if you have any questions about anything, I'm happy to answer that. But because of our short time tonight, I wasn't planning on going through anything specific. And if you have questions next time, if you want to take more time to read through it too, I'm always happy to answer questions later.
Great, so moving on to new business. The library interlibrary loan policy.
All right, let me pull that out. So I have the current policy and the new draft both in your folders. So the old policy was originally adopted in 1998 and it was reaffirmed in 2018. We felt not quite relevant for how interlibrary loans look now. And we felt there was a need for redoing that again. The interlibrary loan is when you are requesting a material that's outside of our CCRLS library consortium. So at the current level, you're allowed 10 per year before there's a $10 charge for each additional interlibrary loan. And the charge is because it takes more time for a library staff member to go in, specifically process those interlibrary loans. It takes packaging when we're sending items back, it takes packaging, we pay for the mail as well, the postage. So it's just different than our other holds, as we call them. But we also felt like when we were redoing this, that $10 was more than we needed to charge for that service. We felt like $5 for each. Usually most books, when they're mailed back, are around $5 each. Some of the items go back through, it's called the Orbis Courier, that goes through Chemeketa Community College. And then other items are mailed back. So we felt like $5 was a reasonable amount to charge, but we also wanted to up the number of ILLs per year to 1 a month to make it 12 instead of 10. We do have a few individuals who use it quite heavily. Sometimes items are things that are more from academic libraries. That's probably most of what we get. And sometimes there's things that are just very, very old that no one in our library system has anymore. It doesn't make sense for us to buy it as a library. That is one of the things we look at is this something that our library should have in its collection? And if it is, then we go ahead and purchase that material and then put that person on hold for that item for when it comes in. But oftentimes they're very niche things that this person is interested in it, but we really don't think anybody else is gonna want to check out this item. Or it isn't available for us. You know, it might be out of print too. So those are times when we do ILLs. So are there any questions for me
I think it could
about the
be worth it.
changes?
How long does it usually take for the item to be processed?
Let's see.
Assuming it's in stock.
You mean how long does it take the person to go through and do everything they need to request it, or how long does it take for the item to get to the person?
The latter.
Okay, so it completely depends on where in the United States the book is. Because sometimes we'll get things from the East Coast that are only available from the East Coast and not available from here. Sometimes we'll have items that come from George Fox University, which, you know, they don't walk it over, but you know, it doesn't take nearly as long. Yeah. Yeah, it just depends.
But it's a great service.
It is a great service, yeah.
A couple of times to get some obscure Navy things. that
Yeah,
You obviously can't get from just anywhere.
right, yeah.
But I think comes a lot from the archives and.
Yes. And we also did take a look at the libraries in the CCRLS system to see what their ILL policies looked like. Some of them charge for every item, which we didn't feel was necessary for us to do. Some charge for none of the items, but they also don't get very many requests for them as well. And then the majority didn't have an ILL policy. So now they're working on an ILL policy. But that was one of the first things that we did too. I did run this by staff as well.
I didn't realize. that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When we lived in Colorado, we would do it. The
Mhm.
library we had there, we would duplex it, and it was mostly from colleges.
Mm-hmm.
I love that you can go look at the real cost and adjust it down to
Mhm.
reflect that. I don't know that that happens very
Mhm.
often, so.
Right, yeah. I think, well, I don't know all the reasons that went into the $10 fee, but yeah, when we looked at it, we just felt as a group that it made more sense.
Questions?
Okay,
Do you need to make a motion?
yes, please.
I make a motion to accept the revised ILO policy.
I will second that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, revised 2024. Thank you.
And then our interviews start at 5:30.
Our interviews start at 5:30, so we could take a recess until then if that works for you.
Just real quickly, next meeting, December 19th. January 16th.
Oh, yes, thank you. Yes. And there is one date, I think that one of our meetings falls on Juneteenth, which is a holiday, so we'll have we'll figure that one out. Figured we could probably figure that one out once we have our new board member and everybody can get it on their schedule there.
Before we break, do I need to adjourn this meeting or should we keep it open because the interviews will be?
I think we just take a recess.
Okay.
And then we'll be back at 5:30. So I'm gonna pause the recording. I think I might need to turn this up. What's this? Those are fun angles. Okay. Right, I think we're ready when you are.
Okay, Our first interview will be Christina Alexander. Hi. Hi. Would you would like to sit right here in the middle?
In the hot
of this
seat.
room?
Yeah.
This is actually an FBI interview.
Oh, okay. Maybe I'll get it. They did undercover.
Thanks for being here. My name is Amanda, and we will start asking you questions. I will start with the first one, and we'll go around the circle. And why don't we introduce ourselves, and it's your turn to ask the question. Okay.
Can I say just a little bit about how it works, the
Yeah.
process works real quick? Okay, so the library board has a list of questions and they'll be scoring questions for each candidate. And then Audrey and I, who do not vote, we will be tallying those. And at the end, we'll be letting the library board know what those scores are to help them in their decision. No, I didn't think about it. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. This first question is a fun one. So, yes, and you had the questions before. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so yes, if time travel existed, would you choose to time travel? And if so, where and why?
All right, so I thought about this a lot. My short answer is no, because I'm spoiled and I like all the conveniences like bathrooms and that kind of stuff that we have now. But if it was, I could do it on a very short period of time for maybe like a few hours. I would love to go to some of those like Regency era times and go to a ball and wear a really fancy gown and learn all the social graces that go along with that time period. But then I want to return to my modern conveniences.
I'm Julia Kigley. The next question is, why are libraries important to communities? And why is our library important to you personally?
I think that libraries are really important to communities just because they kind of put everybody on an even playing field as far as having the opportunity to get different resources and information. Someone might not have the internet at home because they can't afford it, but all kids can come to the library and get the same access as well. This library is important to me because libraries have kind of always been my safe space, even when I was a kid. So I love the quietness and just kind of being by yourself, and I love to read. And I'm trying to instill that in my 9-year-old daughter as well. She loves to come here and loves to talk to all the librarians, especially in the kids section. And so I think that's why they're important to me and to the
Hi, I'm Suzanne Newman. And my question for you is, do you have specific ideas for how you would like contribute to the library advisory board? And feel free to talk about your background and your experience and how that could perhaps relate.
So to be perfectly transparent, I had no idea until a couple months ago that this was even an opportunity that was available. So I had been looking for ways I could serve my community and kind of help out. And I'm not a political person. I don't like politics. So that was, off the list. But I was in a meeting at work and we were talking about different service opportunities and someone said something about a library advisory board. And I was like, that's weird. I wonder if our library has something like that. And I'm not even exaggerating. The next day, the email came to my email box about this opportunity. And I was like, oh, well, that sounds like something that would interest me. So, as far as specific ideas, I would really like to find ways to help encourage people in the community to visit the library more and see what's available. Because I honestly don't think, I didn't for a long time know what all was available. So I'd like to be able to help others know the programs and the resources and all the different things that.
I'm Tim. How do you feel about censorship as it pertains to libraries?
So I'm very personally thankful that we live in a country where there is freedom and we have access to all different types of things and resources and materials. I personally think there are some things that maybe children shouldn't be allowed to see, but I don't think that's the library's responsibility. There's maybe things you shouldn't put on a kid's shelf when they're like this big, but I think that's the parents' responsibility to mediate what their kids are looking at. I feel that way for my own child. I think it's my responsibility to know what she's looking at, what she has access to. So I don't think that censorship should be a thing that
I'm Sheree Atkins. Please tell us about a time when you advocated for diversity and inclusion in a workplace or in a group you took part in.
So I actually, for my professional career, I am a trainer at an insurance company. That's what I do. But one of the things that I get to facilitate on a regular basis is diversity, inclusion, equity, and belonging. So having conversations about how we can make everybody feel accepted, how in work and personal situations, we can just make people more comfortable and not exclude people. So that's something that I do on a regular basis. And I also helped design curriculum for the Los Angeles Fire Department to help them learn about diversity and inclusion with all of the particularly firefighters that work there.
Thank you.
Your next question is, are you comfortable sharing your perspective, even if it's not the majority opinion? And you feel you are able to listen to different perspectives from your own?
Absolutely. I have no problem having a respectful conversation and honoring the decisions and opinions of other people. I think that everybody's entitled to their own beliefs, their own opinions, their own all of that. I don't have to agree with somebody to be kind to somebody. And I don't have a problem listening to other people's opinions. You'll never find me having a loud argument with anybody over anything because it's just not the person that I am. So I can definitely have respectful conversations and honor the opinions of others as well.
What is one of your favorite books and why is it your favorite?
So I love classics. I love all kinds of genres. I'm pretty open that way, but Pride and Prejudice is probably my very favorite book just because it reminds us that first impressions aren't always the real impression. And so I've always loved that book. I like to read it. I like to watch the movie. Nobody in my house will watch it with me, so I just watch it by myself and read it. But that's one of my favorites.
You need a buddy to watch.
I love that one. It's my favorite. All of them. I will watch all of them, but especially the older BBC version. That's my favorite.
You mean the best version, I think,
Yes,
yes.
exactly. It's the best version. But I'll watch any of them.
So do you have any questions for us at the board that you're interested in on, how I need to go or the project to get involved with anything like that?
Yeah, I'm curious to how, this may be a really broad question, but how the library advisory board fits into the vision of the library and how the board and the school would help affect the library as a whole.
Do you want me to take that one?
Sure.
So for, so the library board, as they did tonight, they vote on library policy. So they just updated a revised policy tonight. Some of the policies also have to go before the Newburgh City Council since we're a city department. But some of them, like the one tonight, isn't, it's not a big deal policy. So it's important that we have it, but it doesn't have to go before city council. When the library director is hired, and I'm not planning on leaving anytime soon, so hopefully this wouldn't be a thing that the new board needs to do, but the board also is directly involved in the hiring of the new library director too. Those are some of the biggest ways. I also report on the library budget, especially if there's going to be any changes. The city budget committee sets the budget for the city, but I also get feedback from the library board as well. And then there's, smaller things too, like, well, this year, not a small thing, but we are doing our new strategic plan this year. I don't think I've mentioned that to the board yet, but the old one is, it's through 2025. So we'll be setting one this year, and that really directs the intentionality behind what the library does. So we look at that when we're programming, when we're deciding where we're putting the money. There's a lot of that sets the tone for the library for the next 5 years as well. So does that answer your question? Okay.
Great. Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh.
Are there any considerations you'd like us to keep in mind?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think I did. I'm available for it Thursday evenings.
Awesome.
Nice to meet you all. Thank you.
No, I think that was, thank you. I think that was just for, yeah, for
Um,
notes.
if I
Sorry.
actually might be, I kind of. I've been for the one thing that
Oh, yeah,
I wanted you to.
that's a really good idea. Yeah. Well, and
Did used to have a question that was about
did we?
your ability to meet the, like, go to the meetings and things like that. But
It could have been something that was supposed to go back on there that didn't make it back on. I think it is a good idea to make sure that people can attend the meetings too, so, yeah. I'm gonna grab water real quickly, as you guys are scoring those. Give you a blank line.
There's plenty of pizza left.
like,
Mhm.
We had them too, Lori.
Yes, please. I'll do the maths first before passing it on. For the second maths.
what it was.
Which you what?
Am I, if I'm bad at math.
Let me try looking in reverse. Okay. Taking some time. Okay. I'm sure and then be prepared. Sounds good. While you guys are finishing those up, I found these that I don't think I brought to you last time I was in England. Did I bring you these bookmarks? I got these at the Globe Theater. So if you would like one, you can take one and pass through here.
Almost like we went. I love this kind of art.
Me too.
Have you been to Glasgow?
No. I am not.
It's also a Charles and Mountain Top.
Hmm,
Which is a favorite for me.
nice. Do this schedule. All right, I think that's all of them. Turned in.
Our next candidate is Erin Husby. Is that correctly? Hi. Erin, I don't know if you heard Corey explain a little bit about the campus, but if Corey can do it again.
Yes. So the library board will be asking questions and scoring each candidate. Then the scores will be tallied by Audrey and I, who do not vote since we are staff. We don't get any vote on the board, as it should be. And then the scores at the end help inform the library board on their decision.
Erin, Amanda, your first question is if time travel existed, would you choose to time travel? And if so, where and why?
I have no, it's gonna be better writing this out.
So that's okay. Yeah.
This is actually one of the harder questions for me. And then I actually went and asked a friend who was like, hey, you read a lot of historical fiction, what about my life? And then I paused and thought about that and actually thought they would all be like urban. Like I read a ton of World War I in Europe and post-World War II building and all of that kind of like not right. So what I landed on after that little bit of a diversion was I would probably pick
like pre-1973 Afghanistan. Because I've always been wildly fascinated by Afghanistan and just reading and study. And then I have a couple of really good friends from Afghanistan. I spent a lot of time with them in the refugee community in Portland. And have long dreamed about the idea of traveling with them to their country and having them play tour guide. And that is like the last time period where it's really been at peace. And then also that.
Thank you. Julia, why are libraries important to communities and why is our library important to you personally?
This one I feel like would be really easy to scratch on. It's the first thing that libraries are for everyone. They're kind of that quintessential third space in the community. They're one of very few just low to no barrier community spaces. They're warm in winter, cool in the summer. There's clean bathrooms and comfy seating, and then they're safe, and then they're full of books. So you have this extra bonus. So, and then also free internet, which is like more and more crucial to access everything. And then you add in all of the community resources and help. And I feel like every time I'm in the library, I find something else that you can gain from it. From tax help to book clubs to writing group, all kinds, just endless tons of practical job resources and stuff from different libraries. I grew up the last house on a Forest Service road, about 7 miles outside of the town on Forest Road. And there was a teeny tiny library in this town that could not successfully keep a grocery store open like throughout most of my childhood. But our mailbox, like I can just remember we frequently had those book bags. Like I don't feel like we see them now anymore, but we had those book bags that we get of like requested library books. And as a kid that was really shy, and smart in this tiny, really enclosed community, it was such a like portal to other places and what would be possible of other places to see what was out there in different places of that library. So just I guess a way to feel left alone. For the Newburgh Library, our library, I really love the library thing. I feel like that's something newer that I discovered. My family borrowed like at pizza pots and really random like cake kitchen stuff that my kids got excited about, but there's just no way to fit in the kitchen. All kinds of random stuff that I just think are really cool or that we've explored and would love to try at some point. We've used the puzzle exchange and gifted to it when we had 3 little kids. We got to get these out of our house, so we like gifted all the puzzles to the puzzle exchange. We used the cultural passes. I went to the Gilbert House Museum in Salem last year with one of my kids. We participated in lots of reading programs. We got a bunch of this kits.
That was mostly a COVID thing, but yeah.
Found some of them. I must have like stashed them somewhere, so we stashed them. And then the recent find that I have been in love with is like I think this called book bundles, or I don't know if we just call them book bundles. But emailing and getting like book bundles. And I've been recommending this to like friends. But that has been a really huge thing for our family. My kids love books. They really relate to them and learn from them so well. And we found them to be really great tools to guide learning on all sorts of. And then I personally am usually reading at least 1 to 4 books in paper copy, electronic, audio, and we always seem to have at least a book.
Ideas for how you'd like to contribute to the library advisory board. Feel free to talk about your background.
With this question, I was really felt part of me that we would love to have like a diagram of the current board's like
resume and board skills and like what your skills are and then what the vacancy will create. So I could like answer really nice and start. But without that, as far as my personal background, I've been in and around mostly in the Newburgh area for the last 5 years, which is wild to say. First as a college student, then back as a young professional new homeowner, commuting to downtown Portland to work for tech companies. And now I have 3 young kids, one in public schools in Newburgh, two in preschool here in town. I have a computer science degree from George Fox. I have a master's degree in global public health from Oregon State. I worked for years for almost a decade for local partners that have a store here in the IT department. Then had software companies in Portland. I briefly worked at ADEC. And now I teach computer science part-time. I also have haven't really used it yet, but I have an Amherst Writers and Artists, I'm an Amherst Writers and Artists and Affiliate training workshop leader. I love to write and then along with my spouse, I've been a foster parent for 7 years. This is the worst thing at the end of the day. For 7 years, about 7 years we've been foster parents. And through that experience, we really dedicated a ton of our time to becoming trauma-informed, both obviously in parenting, but also in how we work. Honestly, it's influenced how we work in relationships, work in behaviors, we try to interact with them in that capacity. We're parenting children that are multiracial and bilingual. Excuse me. And we continue to really work to expand our learning and social circles. I already mentioned I worked extensively with the refugee community in Portland. I taught ESL for several years and have several friendships still in that area. Also did grant writing and editing. I did a lot of particularly grant editing. And then a lot of my IT and tech work was in project management. So working on vendors and personally, I just love to travel, read, be outside, gardening, and done a lot of canning. And our, adventures with foster care have put us in a place to use a lot of public services like OHB and right and learn how essential they are, but also how tricky they can be to access. So through that, I've just had an opportunity to interact with so many different people. So it was kind of like this wild. Bring that back in, a wild question, but I just again feel like the library is such a gathering point to kind of bring back in. And again, those book bundles, I just recommend them all the time, and they've been so crucial in my kids learning. Answer. Good answer.
Hi, Tim.
Hi.
How do you feel about censorship as it pertains to libraries?
I don't think it has a place in libraries. I don't think it has a place in libraries, and I don't feel like if something exists in the library, I am required to read it. I looked up the library budget and I saw a line in it that said that the Newburgh Library has close to 80, or at least it's but it had close to 80,000 items in circulation. So I feel fairly confident in saying that even for as a director, you've not read or accessed all of the items in it.
I have not.
So I don't even necessarily love or like all the books in my household. And also it feels really cheesy to me, but it almost feels like in some aspects like the grocery store sells a lot of things that I really don't like. And my husband really loves canned fish, which I think honestly not even half the smell of, but I'm really glad that they sell it for it so that he can enjoy it. And that so many other cultural and things that make people's medical diets are, which I think like a terrible example, actually, now that I say that. But often I think when that conversation about censorship comes in, it comes back to protecting kids. And
I recently read, actually in the last few days, where someone said, I wrote this down because I want to get it close to it, where someone said that protecting children doesn't mean preventing them from learning, but giving them access so that they can learn and know how to deal with the things that hurt them. And that just really resonated with me as a parent, and particularly as a foster parent. That just really rings true from my experience that I think as a parent, you can't protect your kids anyway. As a foster parent, I for sure couldn't protect my kids from their some like really big horrific experiences. And books have been such an incredible tool for them to feel less alone and to process and heal and to see themselves reflected in that in a safe way, and to also see like a way out of things where in really scary things that aren't necessarily talked about. And that was just one example that I feel like is really, really important.
Thank you. I'm Cherie. Please tell us about a time when you advocated for diversity and inclusion in a workplace or in a group that you took part in.
And a really great example of this question, I felt really awkward with the public records. For.
That's understandable, yeah. And it is recorded on video for people to see too. So that's good to keep in mind.
So, and then particularly again, then with my kids and their stories and the ways that I've tried to advocate for their inclusion felt again not great for public records. So, what felt like the better base to land on is that I've spent my career in technology, a realm that is not known for its diversity in general. I feel like that is getting better, but 20 years ago, particularly, I think I was actually the only female graduate in third class in computer science that year, and it was not particularly welcoming, and that was pretty common throughout my career. It was very, very rare to work that, and I had an opportunity. I was invited to cover for somebody's sabbatical, and when I taught, I didn't actually think extensively about it, and walked in to students who were like looking to me as an example, and like, how are you a woman in technology? How are you doing these things? How are you doing these things? As well as a lot of these like small comments, these microaggressions, I think this kind of thing. And again, this is only my experience. I can't the group that I'm in or work in. And so much of my experience has been like, how do you, not these like big dramatic things, but in these small ways, how do I try to set up the environments I'm in to be more welcoming to the person? And it's been a lot of these like small comments that are like, oh, you used to have to be so exceptional to get here, to be one of the people. Why, now anybody can get here, which is really how it should be. You shouldn't have to be more exceptional to be but that is more what it felt like state because that is my experience that I can actually speak to. But also really learning to sit in that role where suddenly I think I was their first now I have a full-time computer science professor maybe. But so many, like I had all these students that wanted use like and use them and ask me to do things that I hadn't necessarily actively processed. And thought about this role that I was in to make things look way.
And the next question is, are you comfortable sharing your perspective, even if it's not the majority opinion? And do you feel you are able to listen to a different perspective from your own?
I prefer to listen first and try to ask a lot of questions. I've generally found that it works best to try to really understand where the other person's coming from. And that often there's some form of shared commonality or concerns that will help bridge to a more productive conversation. Listen to
And
What is one of your favorite books and why is it your favorite?
I love everyone's Um, I generally really love like. But I just love everyone's time, and I almost never reread books. And that's one of the few I will just read. I read and collect books by her. I like them. But I just love that Meg, the hero, is so flawed and fair, that she is not the extraordinary figure in the story. She is fierce and angry and doubts, but she just makes mistakes.
Do you have any questions for us?
Um. What, is there a good thing to do with somebody with
Nope.
I always want for us to have a full conversation about all of our favorite books, but there's not enough time for that, so.
I did think about that.
Yeah.
What? And maybe this is like more of a question for everyone's back, but to anyone, it's like, what do you think is like, what would be a dream of community support for the library? Current. It sounds like it's, and I was assuming there was staffing challenges, because I saw that we talked about hours and stuff, but if we could have any, like, what does that look like? What is great community support, like, whether that's the board or even bigger than that?
Well, something that I've been thinking quite a lot about recently is that the front of the library, how you walk into the library, all of that needs to be completely redone. And that is going to be very expensive to do. So the bricks are slick, our brick steps, like that was the dumbest idea for some place where it rains so much. Because they're always slick. We've had people fall on them, and it's not welcoming when you look at the front of the library and then you have to like walk down these steps to get into the library. I've had people who really could use a ramp who don't see the ramp until after they're down here. That is also, it's not very welcoming for people with challenges with either a walker or a wheelchair. So I think that is going to be probably one of the next big things that we do that we need community support in, is redoing the front. So it would be, yeah, the bricks are failing, there's just different things you can see, like either the cracks or the ones that are sunken as well. It makes for uneven walking across the street. So yeah.
And it almost seems like we're going into a big thing.
Yes. And the reason for that is that the architect didn't realize that this road out here is actually a street and not a parking lot. And so they were then very limited on what they could actually do. And so what they did was they squished it all together, which is why we have an awkward children's amphitheater that we can't use outside there, because it's very too steep. Right. It's very, very steep. It's not good. So also to redo anything like that is very expensive. So that's probably my biggest thing right now. I mean, if I could do anything, and I could have access to all the money I needed, we would have more staff and more money for books and a lot more money for ebooks and audiobooks. And
Do you have anything else that you would like to add, any consideration for us?
Thank you.
Nice meeting
I also remembered that on the initial application is where we asked people to make sure they could make the meeting time too.
That's clear.
Yeah.
Did. Spelled your last name wrong, no?
Yeah.
You want to fix that?
What's my grade?
Oh, okay, we'll go with that.
That's funny.
Great, our next interviewer is Brian.
I didn't bring reinforcements, I just picked up my holes, and they happen to be big.
Go ahead.
Okay, Brian, I don't know if you heard Corey explain the first part of the library interview process. You will get asked questions, you will get scored. Corey and, I mean, not Amanda. Audrey. Will, collect our scores and enter them in. They do not have a vote. So that is why they are doing that for us. And, what else?
Yeah, that's it.
That's it. So thank you for being with us, Brian. My name is Amanda, and your first question is, if time travel existed, would you choose to time travel? And if so, where and why?
That would be easy for me. May 1745, Praxelwald Castle in Switzerland. My sixth great grandfather was thrown in the dungeon there,
Ooh.
apparently for being an Anabaptist, which is counter to the state religion. And we don't have the details, but I think he and his group were there for 4 days and then let out on the condition that they leave the country, because that's what they did. So I want to see what really happened. As it happens, I'm interested enough in this that in May, I'm going to see what it's like there now, but I won't get that ready for spring fights. That was the shortness. If I lived then and there, I wouldn't still be alive today. So I'm happy here.
Wonderful, thank you.
All right, I'm Julia. Why are libraries important to communities, and why is our library important to you personally?
Library is the best place to kind of know of, to get new ideas and to explore them. First place that I remember was home, second was church, we always went to church, the third place that I remember as a kid was St. Mary's local library. And every Saturday, we would go and read books, and unfortunately, they had a limit of 5, so I did 5 every week. And then when I got older, it was about, when I pretty much gone through all the kids stuff. And with permission from my folks in the librarians, got access to the rest of the library. I learned stuff that I didn't have at home. I learned stuff that I wasn't getting to school. And the library serves that role for me today as well. I think it does for a lot of people. So many things are focused, that this is a place where you can find ideas that you maybe didn't even know about. The other bit for me is really practical. I read about 130 books a year. And almost all of them come from this library solution. There's no way I could do that if I hadn't buy them all.
Okay, so for my question, do you have specific ideas how you'd like to contribute to the library advisory board? Feel free to talk about your background and how.
The biggest thing that I'm aware of is we have done is writing news to keep the point. I've done been a part of doing a number of those for my own business, for a church, for a couple of associations. And I find it's a really good process for seeing what the important things are and having some ideas for how to get there. And it's also a great way to collaborate. I've been on 16 boards, hundreds of committees. I work well with, other people, I play well with others, and I enjoy the group process. But I think the strategic plan is probably the biggest thing that keeps it for.
My name's Tim. And how do you feel about censorship as it pertains to libraries?
The simple answer is censorship does not belong in libraries, period. Again, referring to my own experience and what I see as the role of libraries. If you're limiting the ideas and how they're presented, people never discover that bigger world. I grew up in a small town and it was fairly parochial. And if I didn't have access to outside materials, new ideas, new ways of thinking, things that our local school or local government wouldn't have approved of, I wouldn't have found the world that I'm in today. There's one close call for me. I'm glad that the library staff did a great job of keeping out hate speech. That's the one thing that I think was very belonging. Lies, yeah, well, everybody does that. Every president in my lifetime has done it. Those things are going to be there, and you need to be aware of what people are saying. So, you really think stuff. Those we can do.
Right, Sheree, please tell us about a time when you advocated for diversity and inclusion in a workplace or in a group that you take part in.
I was a magazine editor for about 15 years, but then my wife and I started a fair trade business. Fair trade works to market crafts so that people can earn a living. People who are in the third world, people who have a skill but don't have access to a market. Almost all of the people that we work with, these products we sold in our stores, were Black or brown. Many were discriminated against in their own countries, their own communities, because they were indigenous, they were handicapped, or a member of the group. About 90% of them were women. In most countries in the third world, they have the least chance of getting a decent job, and a lot of men out of it because their societies are so structured that they give preference to what they think is the main support thing that they enjoy. I also was on the board of people here for years, and like the church that I was part of, we opened the firm, and we ended up calling it the lesbian minister ever. Not because she was lesbian, but because she was the best person to have done.
Brian, are you comfortable sharing your perspective, even if it's not the majority opinion? Do you feel you're able to listen to a different perspective from your own?
Yes. About 3 weeks ago, I completed a job on a hiring committee where I joined a group with hiring a new editor for a magazine called Western Front. It's a magazine for progressive Quakers throughout the West. 5 of the members of the committee were board members. I was the only one who wasn't. And I was responding to a notice in the magazine saying that it was for somebody who had experience editing and or hiring and or managing. And I had all 3, so I thought, well, I guess this is something I need to do. So we were coming from rather different perspectives. We exchanged ideas on just about everything. We started from the job description through what we were going to do for the interviewing process, interviewing candidates, second interviews in person, and then a hiring position. Everybody had put out their ideas. Sometimes they were quite different to start with. And on every major point, we came to agree. It was a bit of danger involved in that at the end of the process, the others put me on notice that, okay, next time you need somebody in Oregon, you're gonna get a call to be on our board. So I guess we got along all right.
And what is one of your favorite books? And why is it your favorite?
Wild Girl, that's here, great. Everything by Toni Morrison, by Olivia Butler, Wilson Whitehead. But my clear number one is William Faulkner. Not many people like Faulkner because the stuff gets kind of convoluted and hard to follow. I love him. I like puzzles. But also, my opinion, he's the best writer that I have ever read. And put out just somewhere over 100 books. I've read them all. As I Lay Dying is my favorite. It's to the point. Part of it is he creates a whole community. Part of it he creates real people. They don't feel fake. They feel like real people doing real things that are believable. As a former editor, I get annoyed when writers have good plot, good character, but take 400 pages to write a 250-page book. Some of the books I read, I don't get all the way through because I think, no, this is taking too long to get there. And Faulkner does that really well.
Do you have any questions for us, for the group?
Whoever wants to answer this. Maybe you don't know. What's been the best thing about being on this board the past 2 years?
From my perspective, I was able to work on projects that I like. We're still in the middle of trying to digitize all the past Hebrew graphic. And the pandemic happened and the whole plan of how that was gonna facilitate that and fell apart. But now we got newer technology, so it's been that's, we will eventually get there. So if you look at any of those old newspapers, they're very fragile, but so ancient. So
Do you have anything else that you would like to add for us to consider?
Yeah, what's the biggest limit on what the library can do?
And what the library can do, I would say money. We have a really amazing library staff and we've got amazing volunteers. So there's sometimes it is honestly hard to rein them in a little bit. When we don't have the time or we don't have the money, because we get requests for things. They have so many great ideas, but we can't do all the things. So.
This library has more programs and events than any place I've ever seen. My library growing up had none. I'm just amazed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. You're very kind. Appreciate it.
I'm gonna excuse myself for a few minutes. Our elevator has stopped working twice today. If you don't really need it, I wouldn't take it. So I need to go, make some calls to get a repair person here in the morning.
Okay.
But I will be back shortly. So
Are you taking a pause then? Or would
you don't need to
like
pause
continue?
because I don't vote anyway, so
Okay.
you can continue any library questions. Audrey probably knows the answer to. Thank you, Brian.
Next up is Daniel. Hi,
Sit here like this.
Yeah,
and start looking
yeah.
funny.
actually hands just flat on the table, please.
I have
Um,
answers, just so you know,
No,
Rick, some of
that's
these I'm
great.
gonna read verbatim.
Yeah.
Because I have trouble articulating, I stumble through my words on occasion, and others I'll just answer for you.
Yeah. We've done this a few times now and have had both in candidates who have some notes in front of them or, yeah, so that's great. Corey spent a little time just explaining a little bit of the interview process.
I've
We'll
heard
be-
it 3
okay.
times now, so you
Yeah,
don't
we'll be
have
asked questions.
Okay.
It's scored, Audrey and Corey do not vote. That's what was why that they're entering the scores in and yes. My name is Amanda and your first question is if time travel existed, would you choose to time travel? And if so, where and why?
I toyed with the idea of saying no, just to see how you all reacted. But in 1980s. I would have been 9 years old in 1981 when Raiders of the Lost Ark first came out, and I would just love to be able to go back. Okay, you did miss some key parameters, right? Do I know what I know now? Do I get to come back? You know, that kind of thing. But, you know, knowing what I know now, being able to enjoy some of the things that are just very nostalgic for me in my childhood. I'm sure I remember them with much more roses than what they really were when I was growing up. But it would be good to, I would love to experience those things. I would love to kind of be back in the world for a little bit where everything was analog. And everything wasn't digital. You didn't have a phone in your pocket. You weren't distracted. You spent time with your friends, you talked, you had conversations, you wrote, you did projects, things like that. And honestly, we get hung up on our phones these days, and that just kind of makes me tired. I'm a tech guy. I've been a software engineer for 20 years. So any opportunity I get to step away from tech is a big opportunity. But
Okay, so I'm Julia. Why are libraries important to communities and why is our library important to you personally?
I'm gonna read this one to me. Also, I had 3 places I would have gone in travel and time, but I picked my favorite. So why are libraries important communities? Libraries are vital communities as they provide access to information, foster lifelong learning, and serve as inclusive spaces for everyone, regardless of background or financial status. The Newburgh Public Library is significant to me because I write here every Saturday. Lori, I think that's her name that I see on the weekends up there. She's always nice and checking back in on my movies. And I discover new books and films, a lot of films that I probably wouldn't have stumbled across on my own. Because I like to just have them done right and just kind of go look through the collection. And I grab a bunch of things that I either haven't seen before or I wouldn't necessarily buy or rent. So that's actually worked out pretty well. Basically, it's become a creative sanctuary for me. And it's a hub just for personal growth. And I don't know if any of you others right here, but for whatever reason, being surrounded by books while I'm doing it. It was a weird feeling because I've lived here for 3 years. I probably only been coming here for the last 4 or 5 months. It just dawned on me, I needed a quiet place and the wife's like, oh, right. So now every Saturday you can find me out in the Cascade Room, or excuse me, the Carnegie Room. Either by the window or on the little desk with a green lamp. Because it's quiet. It just feels good. I like it. I know I was gonna put it in.
You have specific ideas, my name's Susan, by the way, for how you'd like to contribute to the library advisory board. And feel free to talk about your background and experience.
So I will read what I wrote and then I'll elaborate on it just a little bit. Someone who loves reading and writing, I aim to promote programs encouraging literacy and creative expression. My professional background includes managing teams and advocating for equitable treatment, which I would apply to fostering an inclusive library environment. I also support efforts to modernize resources and ensure the library remains accessible and appealing to diverse audiences. That sounds really, really, not very personal as far as it is, but it's really kind of about how I feel about this. It's a library is a place for me that, I've only been newly coming to here, but I feel like my programming experience is very much if this, then there's that kind of thing like that. I think would help or could help in problem solving, finding ideas, looking at things in a different light. As a software engineer, I'm a developer, we have a QA team, and give it to the actual people to use it and then blow it all up and you have to start all over again. So it's just kind of nice to, in that process, I've been able to kind of foresee some things that might come up down the road that might not necessarily be visible to everybody who's in there, but that's just given the experience that I've had and how long I've been doing it for. I feel like on some level that might come in handy in the event we're looking at new technology products to bring in or solutions online or services that can be used and things like that. And just I offer some insight when it comes to that, because that's what I do every day. And I feel like it'd be good to kind of use it for something that I want to do versus what everyone else is telling me to do. Although I guess we can kind of really do things.
You love it. My name's Tim. And how do you feel about censorship as it pertains to libraries?
So unsurprisingly, I'm going to be in line with everybody else here. I will read this one. I promise I won't all be verbatim, but I just feel like it's how I feel and it's the easiest way to express it. I strongly oppose censorship in libraries. As public spaces funded by taxpayers, libraries must serve all voices and perspectives, not just those deemed acceptable by the censorship undermines the core values of intellectual freedom and access to information, which libraries like this are meant to protect. So I don't think there's anyone for it here at all. And from what I can tell, I have not seen it, because I've been kind of surprised even some of the, like a library that's for me, and something like, oh, I mean, that's kind of like, maybe that's common, I don't know, but I was surprised because I was thought maybe someone differently for me, so we're not gonna tell me why, but having that open to everyone, I feel like is important. Growing up, I had, my library at school, that's pretty much all I had. And I got to read what people said I got to read. And I can only read Catcher in the Rye so many times before I just want to never read another book in my life.
I'm Sheree. Could you please tell us about a time when you advocated for diversity and inclusion, either in a workplace or in a group that you take part in?
So every place I've worked for, I work for a Mountain Call Center. I do software for these guys, and I've been doing it for 20 years. And so we've always had a very diverse group of people. But I did take 1 year off and went to work for another company. And when I got there, I found these two amazing young women that had been working, they hadn't been working at the company all that long, about a year more than what I had actually been there. They were based out of Seattle and they were significantly underpaid from what other people in surrounding areas were getting paid that were just starting, and just for what like a natural salary for Seattle would be. But it was so low, I was kind of surprised that they did it, to be quite honest with you. Anyway, so I gathered the statistics from what people were making in Seattle. I showed I gathered the information in terms of what they contributed, the projects that they did, what they put out there, how much their work they do, how willing they are to step up when they need to step up. And I was able to get them both places, like significant raises, not where they should have been, but way better than what it was. And that was like probably one of two accomplishments I feel like I won before I could work for the other place. I didn't want to travel to anything again. But that was like, that's kind of the quality thing that I was just hyper aware of, because I just feel like doesn't matter who you are or what you are, if you can do the job, then there's merit, then they need to be recognized.
Are you comfortable sharing your perspective, even if it's not the majority opinion? Do you feel like you are able to listen to a different perspective from your own?
Yes. I actually offer opinions that aren't very, common a lot. Sometimes you get, we'll get clients in and stuff, and they'll have all these 3-letter acronyms and cloud this and AWS that and all these other things, and they don't have any ideas of what the costs are involved, right? So I have to step up and be the guy that's either says no, or have you thought about it like this, or whatever. But I'm also willing to have other people argue, make their arguments too. Bill Gates was known for standing on his tables and throwing a temper tantrum. And whenever they got done, when he was interviewed about it, he said, you can't cook without heat. And so the conversations would get heated. Now, I don't have heated conversations, but I invite dialogue. And to me, there's a lot more. You can have bi-directional communication on a situation. I can express my opinion, you can express your opinion. Together, we can find an area that actually is a common ground. And if you can reach that, which we do most of the time, I mean, it's because there's a willingness between both parties to have an open conversation and hopefully be willing to set aside ego for a little bit, so that you can actually make better off than anything else.
Okay. What is one of your favorite books and why is it your favorite?
I don't have to read this one. So you can be all excited about that. My favorite book has been my favorite book since the first day that I read it, and it's Stephen King's It. I read it every single year at Halloween. It's one of my all-time favorite reads, and the reason that I love it so much is that I love the friendship and the camaraderie that it has between the kids. I love the dual timelines that it has. So you get them when I don't know if you read it, but if you haven't, you're missing out. But you get the dual timelines from when they're kids to when they're adults, 27 years later, and what happens in time. And then you've just got the value of the human connection in there that's in there. One of the things that I love about, and I'll rotate it usually every other year. There are dual timelines. You have the kids, so there's kid sections in there, and you have the adults. Now, if you read the book straight through, you just kind of it bounces back and forth between times. So what I like to do is I dog-eared the pages of where they were kids. And then I mark the pages where they're adults, and then I would read through the whole kids section first. So I can read all the kids' experience first, and then go back through and read all the adults' experiences after that. Now, I can't take credit for that because I had a friend that told me that he did that, and I thought that was awesome. And so it's when you do things like that as a writer, it's amazing, because that book's really thick. It's like 1,000 pages or whatever. It's amazing that he was able to keep the continuity the way he did. Because I write a page and I'm like, oh wait, I can't do that yet because it hasn't happened here. But reading through that, the continuity on it it's inspiring. It makes me feel good. It's nostalgic for me, and it's kind of a comfy place for me to go, even though it's boring.
Do you have any questions for us or any considerations that you'd like to add?
I had a couple of questions, and these are just kind of like throwing them out there to have an idea of what you guys are looking forward to as well, or what the needs are. The first one is, what are some of the biggest challenges that the library is facing right now? And how do you think that this advisory board is able to address them?
I think one of the biggest challenges coming up is that we need to redo the front of our library, the outside of our library. And that's going to mean us fundraising too. So I think part of what the board can help with is library advocacy. So, we have higher checkouts than we've ever had before. So we're in a good place for that. So it's, there's a part of that would be harnessing that as well. And that's, this board is made up of people with all kinds of different connections in the community. So it's, harnessing all of that to reach out to people and say, do you know what the library has to offer to get library support as well? And then, fundraising will be something that's on my mind. Yeah.
And is that something, because I haven't been in Newburgh for a very long time, but is that something you guys do regularly?
We did this last let's see, I think we started in. It took us about 10 years to fundraise for the children's library. And, but that came at a terrible time. The economy had just tanked and we had to revise our plan and, all kinds of things happened there. And this is also a smaller project than that was because we expanded the children's library by about 40%. So it's not something we do regularly, but it is something that we've done before.
Are there any initiatives or programs that you all are particularly proud of right now that you have and you would like to see extended?
Ooh.
And I'm not necessarily directing these to you, but it's just, you happen to be.
I
in
can
the
say,
hot
I
seat,
think
yeah.
the work that Corey and the team have done to expand like bilingual services and then books in different languages and just to build out not just books that are translated, but like culturally specific books over time. And the more we could do that, I think is something that I'm particularly excited about.
Thank you.
Well done.
I mean.
Do you want to trade spots?
Yeah.
That light right there is really-
Oh, I've sat there.
The last question I have is, well, actually, I have one bonus question for you guys after this one. How do you envision the role of the advisory board evolving in the future?
Well, we do want to increase our membership. Right now,
It's an even number right now.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't.
So you don't have a tiebreaker, is what you're saying?
Correct.
Right.
we have always a student, a high school student on staff and able to vote.
Yeah.
So that's good. So if we get messy, it hasn't so far, but possibility is there, so you guys can increase from membership.
Yeah. I think this year, what I would like to do is revisit most of our policies. There's some that haven't been revisited in quite a while and just, go through those with the staff first to get their eyes on it and then bring it to the library board to get another set of eyes on it. And then of course to hopefully pass that. And some will need to go to city council. So that will be a little bit of a longer process as well. The strategic plan coming up. I have never done a strategic plan before. So I know that other people on the board have done that and I'm excited about learning from them too. So I think that's something that I definitely need help from the board on as well. Yeah.
That sounds exciting. Remember, I think.
Yeah.
Speaking about policies, I'm from Maine originally, and there was still a blue book law, for any of those that are familiar with it, that it is illegal to buy alcohol and a toothbrush on the same day.
Oh.
Goes back to the prohibition, not that I've ever done it, I'm just saying that it's on the books over there. My bonus question for you guys is this, and I just happen to think about it. You come in and you say, hey, Dan, we like you here, we want to bring you on part of the board. And great. What can I bring, knowing what in this brief conversation, what would I be able to bring to the table that would help? Be it technology, be it an alternative idea that might have on there, or the fact that I'm just kind of new and fresh to the whole thing. I might be able to ask quote unquote dumb questions that actually prompt bigger thinking, something like that. So I'm just curious how, like, this new person, myself, would actually fit, what you would envision that looking like.
Yeah. I know we're short on time, so let's keep it brief, but I think a passion for the library is probably the key thing in my mind, regardless of skills. But that's sort of paramount.
Given what I've heard, you're not gonna have a problem with that.
Yeah, I think being a user of the library and even just when things come up and like tonight I said something I read, I thought it was something else based off of the wording, and Corey, and I was like, oh, that's good to know. Good to know that someone that uses the library would read it like this. Or what was the other one for the cozy reading program where I read it as
Oh, I don't remember, but you had, yeah.
I read it as a different term of like the winter program or something, but
Yeah.
anyway, it's just knowing that I come and I use it and I will read it and I will, or the programs we use and we read and, so getting that perspective, but also just your own professional background, like you've mentioned, I think your perspective is uniquely your own. Corey talked a lot about policy and strategic planning, so knowing that, you can come in and you can be okay looking at something with that eye of wanting to problem solve, bringing your professional experience into, even just reading over something like that and, being able to, present your ideas or present your opinion in a way that can help with the library.
So it gives me some idea of what, what it would look like, for myself as a person. So basically you're telling me it's another day of work. Okay, great.
Fine.
I'm gonna tell you, I probably like all of you, I will say.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
No more bonuses. for you
Okay.
guys.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank
Thanks.
you.
Have a great night.
You too. Good.
Elevator.
It is at the moment working and there is a service call for tomorrow morning. Early.
Never a dull moment.
No, I felt
And you got
terrible
that
for the
early tomorrow?
person who,
Oh,
oh yeah, 2 people have been stuck in the elevator today.
Reuse, rewrite.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reuse, rewrite.
Yeah.
I was like, what was that? Okay, Rob. Hi. Hello. How's it going?
Good evening, everyone.
Hello. Good
Evening.
Brutal. You know.
So brutal. You've never done this before, have you?
Where do you wanna,
So Rob, the way we're working with the interviews is that the library board is scoring the panel sorry, it's been a long day now. They're scoring the candidates. Audrey and I are checking those numbers and entering them. And then at the end, it will give the board an idea of how everyone has scored so that they can figure out who their top choice will be. And then, of course, that choice goes to the mayor who makes the final appointment.
We have 15 minutes, is that correct?
yes.
Yeah.
I mean, we will take as much time as we need to answer your questions.
Sure.
Yeah, and we are, yeah. Yep. Okay, Rob, my name is Amanda, and your first question is, if time travel existed, would you choose to time travel? And if so, where and why?
Yeah, so this is a great question. I'm gonna be kind of lame about answering it, but I'm gonna be honest. And it's the qualifying question, the clarifying question. Such as, if I time traveled, can I come back to the present? And if I went back, would my actions, I did in the past, say, impact the flow subsequently of human history and change things, right? So I thought about like, I could go back to the time and prevent Lincoln's assassination, but what then? Or, go back 1,000 years and get people into washing their hands before delivering children, within surgery, But then who would live as a result and how that change things? So anyway, that's my answer.
Wow, yeah.
Or the Big Bang, then like, where would I stand to watch it all?
Just really quickly, do we need to move that? I hadn't realized before how much the light is in people's eyes. Yeah, the shorter people seem to be fine. Are you okay? Okay. If that changes, feel free to move. You just shift your spot. Yeah.
All right. Why are libraries important to communities? And why is our library important to you personally?
Yeah, so generally, I mean, I've been a long time library user since I was a kid. My parents took me to the library, and so I fell in love with reading, way back when. Generally, I think libraries, they enrich the human experience, right? Every person out there who's a user, libraries enrich them, you know, mentally, and in the heart, certainly. And I think all of us here are here because we feel the same, right? That people have diverse interests and they can appeal to very practical needs. If someone's business plan, if there's a little small business that they want to start versus reading inspiring novels, et cetera, poetry and all the rest, the great breadth of human knowledge and experience. And yeah, for me personally, that's absolutely true. I like to read, it's a part of my life, and it enriches me. And so there's also the aspect of the public library specifically, that is equity, right? And so one thing I love about libraries, it doesn't matter if you're like the CEO of a company or you're a 6-year-old doing a report on aardvarks for school. If those people are at the reference desk and if your kids in front, the CEO's got to wait. If they all have equal rights, right? And I think that's a beautiful thing.
Okay, I'm Suzanne. Do you have specific ideas for how you'd like to contribute to the library advisory board? Feel free to talk about your background and your work experience or life experience. What might.
Sure. So I do have a went to library school, so I got the degree. I've been an academic librarian, and actually a special librarian. I was at the World Bank. So first job out of grad school, and then so I've had about 15 years experience in academic libraries, about 11 of which were at George Fox. So I would bring that, I don't know whether that's an asset or not, really, for this library board. But I do have perspective as a longtime library user and advocate. Again, I believe heartily in the principles of every individual having equal rights to their needs being met by the library. I have to be an analytical thinker, so I do enjoy problem solving. I'm big into crossword puzzles, but also I do some of that in my work, making programming work. So I would bring that. I also feel like I'm a pretty good collaborator. I'm willing to listen and work with others. Well, I get along with people. I believe in the library. I love to work together for common good.
Thank you.
And Tim, and how do you feel about censorship as it pertains to libraries?
Yeah, not a huge fan. I gotta be honest. We're all aware of the polarization, right, in our greater culture, and here in Newbury, right, the latest election results, and yeah, we've got a lot of different opinions out there about various topics, and there's a lot of noise on air. When it comes to censorship specifically, I interpret that as the government trying to limit what people can access. And I think it's just fundamental to libraries to push back against that, right? It's almost like a sacred area, you know, where government will go into churches and get people. The libraries need to be resistant to those efforts. There's got to be sound policies. I know we have a collection development policy here at the Newbury Public Library. Yeah, I mean, I'm not aware that it's been a major issue in the past, but I think the library needs to be willing to stand against that.
Could you tell us about a time when you advocated for diversity and inclusion, either in a workplace or in a group that you took part in?
Yeah, so at George Fox, I participated in a couple of book groups, Ta-Nehisi Coates and Jamar Tisby. But I guess the one that came to mind when I read that question, thanks for the question today, thanks, by the way, if that helps. So I volunteered to be a search advocate, so at George Fox. And so what this is, it's people who get trained on looking for inequity. At any point in the search process, right? And so there's the big federally protected classes, right? That you can't discriminate against, but then there's more subtle ways of discriminating against candidates. And so there was an incident that came to mind. So I was on a search advocate for faculty position in the honors program. And so it was all honors faculty on the search committee and then me. And so mostly I just listened as they did their interview questions and went through the process. But after the first round of interviews, there were maybe a dozen candidates and they were kind of rating, just like you're doing tonight, right? So you're rating each candidate's various criteria. And they were privileging individuals who had been to Ivy League schools. And so that was a red flag that went up for me as the search advocate because they didn't say in their job posting that they were going to privilege those candidates, which are prestigious schools. And it takes a lot of resources, right, to go to the Princeton and Yale's and Harvards. And so that was inequity. And so, yeah, I had to speak up and say, yeah, you can't consider that as part of the search process because it was not in the job posting. So it was very instructive for me, and I think it's spread awareness for others. That's my example.
Thank you.
Rob, are you comfortable sharing your perspective, even if it's not the majority opinion? And do you feel like you're able to listen to a different perspective from your own?
Yeah, it's always situation dependent, right? And I can't say that I'm always comfortable. But I'm certainly willing to speak up. And one of the techniques, having been around this earth a few years, I've learned to take the personal stuff out of it and speak more objectively. To say like, well, a counter argument to what you're saying would be or is, X, Y, and Z. So trying to take some of the heat out of the issue. But yeah, I mean, I'm okay. I like exchange of ideas, and I am willing to listen. I think I do pretty well at trying to still my internal voice and internal dialogue and fully soak in and consider. It's not always easy though, right? It's human.
What is one of your favorite books and why is it your favorite?
Good question. Cormac McCarthy's The Road.
Mhm.
Wow, beautiful book. If you're not familiar, it's kind of a dystopian. It's very bleak, right? It's this environmental disaster has almost wiped out the population of the earth. It's a big father and son journey, and it's incredibly brutal circumstances. So the father-son relationship, I am both a father and a son, really resonated deeply with me. It's beautifully written, very McCarthy, I mean, very stripped down, tons of symbolism and biblical allusions. Anyway, it really spoke to me. It's hard to always articulate why a book does connect so well. But that one I've read numerous times. If you haven't done so, I recommend it. Also, the movie I thought was pretty darn faithful to the text, and they did a nice job. As an aside.
The movie was too scary to me to watch.
Oh, it was. Yeah, but
I read the book, I love movie.
we won't get detailed.
Rob, do you have any questions for us?
You know what? I'm gonna give you your time back on that one. I was eavesdropping with your last candidate. I was also gonna ask about the greatest challenges facing the library. Money. No. Yeah.
Yeah.
And any other considerations that you'd like us to consider? About you?
Got a dog.
A dog, okay, dog person. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good night. Check that math extra well and gets to be The later it gets, the more we triple check. Okay, more one or two.
Okay, Stephanie. Earlier,
Yeah.
yes. I know, I like saw it going into his eyeball sometime and I was like, is it hurting you or?
I think it's not as bad as it looks.
Okay,
From
You're
over
right,
there,
you're
it
like-
looked- I was like.
Kinda spooky, right?
I know.
I can see it.
Okay.
okay.
What if I don't blind you?
Yeah.
So the way this works is that I'm gonna be able to not explain this at all by the time we get to Kate, so I hope you're paying attention.
Kate will be able to say it back to us.
So the Library Advisory Board is scoring candidates and then those will be entered. And at the end, the scores will give the Library Advisory Board a tool to use in deciding who they want to pass on to the mayor as the person that they would like appointed for the Library Advisory Board.
Courtney
Thank
and
you.
Audrey do not vote or aren't part of that process, so that is why they are able to enter in and review this. Or I don't know, actually, that which they're able to.
It's our job.
Yeah.
No, I get that.
Yeah.
It's very similar.
They're just
It's
non-voting members, yeah. Okay, awesome. Jesse, my name is Amanda. Your first question is, if time travel existed, would you choose to time travel? And if so, where and why?
That's a very interesting question. And yes, I would choose to, but I would qualify it with the fact that I would like to be an observer and not a participant.
Mhm.
Because I would like to go back to kind of the pinnacle of the women's suffrage movement. And I don't necessarily want to have to live in that space, but I am very curious about the work and the time and the sacrifice that went into making such a huge shift in a time where that seems like the furthest thing that could possibly happen. I think as we move further and further away in history, we kind of gloss over things when things sound like, oh, women really wanted to vote and then they worked for a while and then they were able to vote. It was amazing.
Mhm.
Like, I'm sure there were amazing parts, but I'd really like to see like the nitty gritty of what does that look like. Because I think that we're in a space where we might have to do some of those things again. And I'm curious what that looks like.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm Juliet. Why are libraries important to communities and why is our library important to you personally?
I think libraries are a really special place. I grew up, I'm sure almost everyone has said this, I grew up going to the library. It was one of the biggest, events in our week. We had our bag that we took. But as a family growing up with not a lot of money, it afforded me some really amazing opportunities personally, as a child. And I see that continuing to be true in so many communities. I think they're a safe place for large groups of people, many different kinds of people. And it's not just books, it's people meeting, people being able to come together, enriching the community, and, but of course the books. I was able to read so many more things than I could have ever read because they were just at my fingertips here. And I had a really special relationship with my librarian as a child, and since she would like set aside books that I would like that I probably wouldn't have picked up off the shelf, and some things that really touched me at like really specific times. And I think that's a gift, that relationship that you can build with people. And maybe, this library personally, to me, I check books out. It's the reason that I can garden and walk my dog and not go insane and cook because I'm reading books all the time. So I really appreciate that. But also it's a place for me to send my students, and I've been a teacher for a long time and now I'm the reading specialist, and it's been such a joy to send them to check out things for OBOB and for the summer reading program. And I'm really excited about your cozy reading program because we're just at that time where like students are starting to lose interest in all sorts of things as the holidays get closer. And they were very excited that they could come check out. So I think this library works really hard to meet community members where they're at and to move things forward. I love that you can check out passes. Some of my students have gotten to go places that they would have gotten to go because they were able to access that. And I think that's really important.
Hi, I'm Suzanne. Do you have specific ideas for how you'd like to contribute to the library advisory board? And feel free to talk about your job experience or life experience, how that might facilitate them.
Well, I did happen to overhear that money is an issue. I don't think it's a secret that money is also an issue in my personal job. And so I'm really very good at being really creative with people and time and resources. I think that's just kind of the nature of public education. I've been really good at that for a while. So I hope to bring that. And then I also hope to, you do such a great job of being a partner with our schools. Corey has come into our school to like be excited about the summer reading program. She's allowed our second graders to come and tried really hard not to touch everything while we're here to get excited about summer reading program. But I'm a liaison to the public schools, and I don't know how that would be helpful or if that's helpful, but I would love for that to be helpful if it could be helpful. So if nothing else, I can publicize events to a large group. And children get excited.
I'm Tim. How do you feel about censorship as it pertains to libraries?
I'm pretty opposed. And I think libraries specifically are a really special place that you can access information of all kinds. And I think anytime we're restricting access of information, I think history has showed us that generally speaking, that doesn't lead to very good things. And then I think just in general, like who makes those decisions, I think it's a slippery slope. It changes with the majority of the culture and the space, or politically or religiously or morally, those things shift all the time. And it would make me nervous if we decided to get rid of books for a certain reason, then what does it look like to bring those back if things shift? So I would be really excited to help have that be true. I think I do have a tiny bit of experience in that just because we've had some challenges in our own library at school. And so I'm getting really good at having hard conversations with people about why that's not the best move. So we want people to access.
Okay, so if you could please tell us about a time when you advocated for diversity and inclusion in a workplace or in a group that you take part in.
So this is a good question for something that we are working on right now. Our school improvement plan, and we're working on a family literacy night. It's been something that we've been trying to do for a while, but it's really difficult post-COVID to kind of put a bunch of people together. We seem to have the same groups of people coming to our events, and we're working really hard to make that a safe space for all people and all of the students that we serve. I think personally, I work with struggling readers, and I want their families to come and see what they're doing and to get excited about reading. And a lot of times, the families of kids that I'm working with, not always, but a lot of times, they have pretty hard school experiences, and so school isn't always a safe place or an easy place for them to be. And so as we're planning this event, we got so excited, I realized that we have the same voices of the people that are coming already. We don't have anybody who can speak to some of those spaces where we're not getting people in. And so we've kind of halted our progress until we can get a wider range of people. to be able to help us plan an event because we don't know what we don't know. And we need somebody that we can ask those questions. So now we're a problem.
Okay. Jesse, are you comfortable sharing your perspective, even if it's not the majority opinion, and you feel you were able to listen to a different perspective from you?
Yes, I've had to practice that a lot in my job, and I don't think it's always easy, but I'm pretty comfortable with it now. I'm learning a lot as I get older and with people that a lot of times we're saying very similar things, but in kind of different ways, and we can come at a problem differently. And sometimes if I can be still and listen, which I'm getting better at, I shift my perspective because I hear something that maybe I didn't realize I wasn't thinking about. So yes, I feel comfortable. I've had a lot of practice with my in-laws, so I'm getting really good at that.
All right, what is one of your favorite books and why is it a favorite?
That was such a hard question. But my grandmother told me to tell you, she's sorry, is probably one of the most special books that I've read. I think Frederick Backman makes some of the most amazing characters that I have personally read because they're not all good and they're not all bad. And their motivations for why they do things are so messy and so real. The other part of that is that it marries this like fantastical fairy tale world that I kind of lived in as a child with kind of more realistic fiction. And I read it right after we lost my mother-in-law pretty tragically, and it's about a grandmother who is not with their family anymore. And so I feel like it helped me walk through a grief process that I didn't know I needed to walk through. And I think that's one of the beauty of books is that it is like a balm to your soul that you didn't expect or that you didn't know you needed. And I have found that with his books to be true.
What was the name of the book?
My grandmother told me to tell you she's sorry. It's really lovely.
You have to go with the-
Yeah.
You have any questions for us?
I'm gonna say what the person before, I had two of those questions, so I heard the answer and I appreciate all of that.
Great, and do you have anything that you would like us to consider? Any other?
No, the only thing that you guys meet on Tuesdays, is that correct?
Thursdays.
Thursday. Oh, it is Thursday. It's been a very long week. The children know Thanksgiving is coming up.
The third Thursday.
The third Thursday.
Yeah.
So I am working on my ESOL endorsement and the class I'm taking right now is on Wednesdays, but I have no idea what the next one will be. And my hope is that it won't coincide, but if it does, it might like affect one.
You do get excused absences,
Mhm.
so.
Yeah.
Well, and some of my classes I can also do makeup work, so like I can figure that out. And I don't know if that will be an issue. That's the only issue that I can see.
I'm not writing it down.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's mine.
yeah. U of O will tell me at some point. But I don't know it. Thank you,
Yeah,
guys.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
Especially for such a long evening. Sure.
Thank you.
Story. You tell them. No, darling.
Yes.
What's the-
I want to say crater, but
No, she's got.
I could be wrong.
Plug those numbers right in there.
I should
Wait,
say,
you know
I know her
total?
from doing the school visits all the time. Yeah.
My brain is like
Yeah.
really working hard.
I know, right? You're like, what is
But
it?
it's good.
Half a point plus another half a point. Like, how is that so hard?
That is why at this point in night, I am using a calculator.
That's so smart.
Hi,
Thanks.
how's it going?
Good.
Good,
Ready?
you're up, yes.
Cool. Can I grab a little water?
Oh, please.
There's also pizza if you want to grab a slice later too.
Thank you.
That's funny, yeah.
We had for dinner.
Nice,
And you don't have, you can do it if you don't, okay.
yeah. David, I'm Corey, the library director, and how the interviews are going tonight is that the library advisory board is scoring the questions, and then Audrey and I are tallying those, and then at the end of the night, they look at those scores, and that helps them make a decision on which person they're going to send on to the mayor for appointment in December, which means people start in January.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Amanda. Your first question is, if time travel existed, would you choose to time travel? If so, where and why?
Yeah, this question and another one, I decided to bring my answers. Sorry if I'm cheating, but they're just so unique. It was really fun to go through. So thank you for that question. I'm a big like sci-fi fan, so it really threw me for a loop. I had to think about this one for a while because you get worried about, like changing something, or I liked what the previous person said about being an observer. But I took that to a more personal level. If I could change things and tragedies and atrocities, and of course, like who wouldn't do that, but just thinking at like a micro lens, what I would do. I thought it'd be really interesting to just kind of go back and see, like, observe myself in different interactions, like with such a different experience and perspective as a parent that I have now. Just see how those things and what I would think about myself and my interactions when I was younger. And then, at least for me, maybe it's a memory issue, but we just have like this picture of ourselves. But if you challenge yourself, at least I find, if I try to remember a new memory, you know what I mean? Like we have these sort of core memories of Disneyland. I had this, I broke my thumb in the corridor. Like you have just these certain moments, but trying to remember things in between those, it's hard. And so I thought it would be really neat to see some people that I can't see anymore and see some of those memories and, just get one look back on some of those events that I thought would be really neat.
All right, Julia. Why are libraries important to communities, and why is our library important to you personally?
Yeah, the first thing that I think of is really just access to information and knowledge and just the wealth that we have within a library like this. It's so important to me, I think, and to communities to keep that going and have that publicly available. I think, even with an encyclopedia in our pockets, we take that for granted, but not everyone has that, right? And the library kind of sets a level playing field for communities, in my opinion. So just the raw access and information and, fun that you could go have finding a book is my number one thing. And then the services, I think, are really neat and community focused, and each library is going to have probably very different services and meetings and events every week. But, when I look at ours and I see things like the memory group meeting and stuff like that, that's such a neat experience that I would have loved for my great grandma to take part of that, when she was dealing with challenges and we were dealing with challenges and helping her. So I think it's really community focused, and the number one thing, again, the access to the information is just so important. Sorry, the personal part. Almost forgot that second part. This is why I wrote things down. Very important to me is as both a dad and really community member. It's done a lot for us. I have a 10-year-old and a 4-year-old, and they've taken part in so many of those library programs. My son was born in February 2020, so it's super, very COVID baby, right? That was when we weren't sure what was going on with the disease and how it affected young people more or differently than old people. So we were very, tight knit, and some of his earliest interactions were story time with other kids at the library and events like that, whether it's outside or, in small groups and stuff like that. So just such a neat program. Love doing like the Winter Craft Bazaar, and my daughter and I just got to go to a Blazer game that, we could afford from the little coupon that we got from our summer reading. She won, I don't know if it was for everyone or just a prize.
Yes, for everyone.
Yeah, it was so
Yeah.
great. So, yeah, there might be. I can send you the link. if you- I took a picture, I sent it to some friends. But yeah, I think it, you know, it comes back to me now, like, how can I help share that with other people who might not have known about it too? Because we do have so much here. It is such a big resource. But not everyone knows about it or takes advantage of it. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Suzanne. Do you have specific ideas how you contribute to the library advisory board? Feel free to talk about your background and experience, so that's it, you know?
Yeah, thank you. I have a really varied background. So yeah, I'll talk about that a little bit and then maybe how that can pertain to some of the things I can more specifically help with. But you know, working from manufacturing and, you know, marketing based companies, I worked at Nike for a time. So lots of, you know, interesting corporate level experience. And now I'm sort of in this, I'm at a chemical company, but we deal with the academic world and research and biotech and stuff. So it's a really different environment than I've been in before. And I did my MBA with a finance concentration at George Fox in 2015. So currently I manage our marketing and then which is a lot of sort of digital and, you know, reports and analytics based focus. And then I manage our channel relationships where we sell our products through. So a lot of relationship building and networking and go to events, you know, throughout the year and stuff like that. So I get a little bit of, you know, a lot of different aspects, I guess, of you know, financial and marketing and psychology stuff versus like contract relationships. So I guess my point there is I have a lot of varied backgrounds that I'd be happy to help with, you know, figuring out the biggest need or where I would fit in with the goals of the board, I think would be obviously one of the first steps to figure out how I can help. In terms of things I like to do and can see myself doing, helping facilitate, you know, whether it's a meeting or a discussion. I like helping people, you know, get the best ideas out of a group environment, whether that's asking questions or proposing ideas myself. And then also perhaps connecting with like local businesses, you know, if we need support for events, I think that is a resource that I could certainly help with and would be happy to talk to folks like that. Yeah, so hopefully be an asset overall, but maybe some of those things spoke to some of the needs of the group. Yeah, thanks.
Hi, I'm Tim. And how do you feel about censorship as it pertains to libraries?
Yeah, that was an interesting question. It's not one I've thought a lot about prior to this, but you know, I've of course exposure to censorship and current events and issues and things like that. In my mind, again, with the internet and what we have today, it just seems silly. Like, you know, what are we even talking about? Banning a book from one library, right? Like it's out there already. The information's there if people want to get it. So it seems a little, you know, strange to me. I don't understand. And maybe that's a conversation with somebody who would like to ban a book. Like, have they thought about that? You know, right? So I don't see much value in it. One thing I kind of can see value in is like protecting people from themselves. You know, I don't want to see like a book about how to make weapons in the teen section or something like that. That's probably not the best use of our, you know, books on a shelf. If there's not much value other than that. But I think my overall opinion is if we're bringing a book into a library, I trust that process, and I don't really think we would need to probably censor something. That being said, I think to help assuage people's concerns, if there isn't already, if there's a process for people to, hey, I have a problem with this book, a lot of times hearing those people and then having an outlet for them to tell you that and then to provide an answer, I think can solve a lot of those problems. I think a lot of, you know, potential anger issues come when people feel like they're not heard. And so that was something I thought of mentioning that would be worth writing down. But yeah, even if nothing comes of the complaint, I think that's sort of the route I would take.
We do have that process, by the way.
Yeah, I kind of figured.
So could you tell us about a time when you advocated for diversity and inclusion, either in a workplace or in a group you take part in?
Yeah, I think that's really important. That everyone feels like they have a voice and seat at the table, and I think it's even harder now. I was thinking recently in terms of my work environment, because so much of our stuff is remote based. You know, it's if you're in a environment like this versus like a Teams call or a Zoom call, where some people don't have their cameras on or something, for instance, right? It's hard to see if somebody like thinks they want to say something, right? You can kind of get those intuitive vibes from people where, hey, look, before we move on, Suzanne, seems like, do you have anything you want to, kind of encourage people, right? So I kind of focus on the encouragement and then also asking questions and leaving time for questions to be asked. So one example recently was, we came up with a new marketing process for our sales agents, and just even a simple, hey, Josie, how does that sound in your territory? How does that seem like this is something that would work for you? Are you excited about it? What are asking questions, not just do you hate it and putting people on the spot and making people uncomfortable, but just trying these sort of sideways approaches to make sure that people have a chance to raise a concern. And if you ask them, where in my opinion or my personality is, if I have something to say, I'll probably just say it, if it's appropriate at the time, but not everyone thinks like that. And so giving them that outlet in case they're anxious about saying something, I think is really important. And then an example with my kids' team, she was on a basketball team a couple of years ago where, there's always a mix of skills and abilities and desire to even be out there. And she was getting frustrated where, she didn't want to pass to somebody because she didn't know that she could trust them to do their job as part of the team, right? And so we came up with some ways to help that, like passing to them early in the game so that they stay engaged throughout it, or providing, words of encouragement or advice if her coach thought that was appropriate too. So trying to get them to see that from a young age versus her initial read was, she's not very good at basketball, I don't want to pass to her. It's like, we're a team, right? Let's build each other up and focus on that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, David, are you comfortable sharing your perspective, even if it's not the majority opinion? And do you feel you're able to listen to a different perspective from your own?
Yeah, I've sort of shortcut this one in the last one, but yeah, definitely very comfortable sharing my perspective. And, never to be annoying or contrarian, if I'm the only one who thinks something because of how it benefits me or my specific circumstances, I don't always need to say that. But of course, if I felt like other people might have the same view, or if it's relevant to more than just my own personal situation, always happy to share that. And it's interesting, this question made me think of an example too, where even if you all agree on something, even if we all agree that something's a good idea, having everyone pitch in and talk about why can help you find, like, we might have totally different views of why this is a good idea. And you might help me understand something better that, unlocks something, right? Where I'm only looking at it from my perspective. And if I can understand why you think also censorship is bad and it's because of XYZ, and I learned some history there, that educates me in the process. So I think we can all get something out of sharing our perspective more.
All right, and what is one of your favorite books and why is it a favorite?
Yeah, this one's a tough one. So I kind of took the lens of just giving some recommendations, I guess. So I have a few. I'm like I said, big sci-fi fan. So I have to mention Brandon Sanderson, super prolific writer. I find he's really good for younger readers. The Mistborn series was a great starting point for younger readers or people who've never liked fantasy or never read fantasy. It's a good introduction. It can be sort of a niche genre or super dense genre where I think Sanderson's you could find things you like about fantasy in a Sanderson book, in my opinion. I remember 1984 having a really large impact on me as a teenager, being one of those first sort of books, whether it was required reading or not, I don't remember, but one of those books that sort of made me think about my worldview more than just sort of reading the book and, going through the process and writing the report or whatever. Always loved The Alchemist by Paul Coelho as just, it's such a fun, great, quick read. Another one for young readers who I was encouraged, it took me a long time. I didn't know I liked reading until high school. So these kind of books I think are great for that. The Day of a Bad trilogy, it's a newer one. historical fantasy in a Middle Eastern city with like really great characters and locations. Just love that. I read all those. I found that the cover was cool up in like the section upstairs. So I found it and I read all three from this library actually. And then always have to recommend still paying off those loans. So have to recommend some MBA books. Daniel Pink, Drive is a really great one. It really helped me understand with research, why people perform the way they do, good and bad, what drives them and motivates them. Super interesting business and just general sort of psychology book. And then more specific, like super businessy, The Fifth Discipline. It's a book on systems thinking and, learning how it's very easy to make a change and then observe a behavior and then make a change and observe a behavior, but you're not thinking about all the interconnected pieces that change along the way. The simplest being, the shower knob where you turn it to hot and you don't wait, but it doesn't get hot. So you turn it to extra hot, right? And you keep doing that and you never have a comfortable temperature where you need to wait to let the system warm up the water and then deliver it to your house to get right. So just a really great one. Fifth Discipline. I like that one a lot.
David, do you have any questions for us?
Yeah. I was just curious, going through, obviously, most of these interviews today, is there any questions you sort of wish you would have had on your list or any other questions that you've been thinking of along the way? Get to the last two people, maybe it doesn't count for grading, but yeah, that was just a curiosity. And then the other one, maybe more concrete, is just, are there any projects or tasks that, are on the list that we're hoping to achieve for 2025 that, are of concern or critical or new or exciting, sort of what's out there that would be interesting?
I don't know why it's different for me this time around, but I think I wish we would have why do you want to serve on the
Yeah.
board? It's something for some reason, it hadn't been clear for me this time around. I don't know why. So that's probably one question that I wish.
Yeah, it seemed like there was chances to build it in throughout there, so
Yeah.
I hope that I communicated that, but yeah, that I think maybe just asking outright that, that's a good motivation question, for sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you guys
Thank
very
you.
much. Appreciate it.
You know what? You are the last person, but we are also now back on time. Because we had a 15-minute gap too, because somebody decided that this wouldn't work for them at this time, so. I know, it's been a long night for you.
So yes, closing in about 30 minutes. If you would like to sign up for a library card today, please fill out an application at the circulation desk in the next 15 minutes. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Hi.
Hi.
So I think by now you know the process.
Yes.
She's like, please stop.
But can you read it back?
Right, do you have it memorized? Yeah.
We've never met before, but my name is Amanda. And if time travel existed, would you choose to time travel? And if so, where and why?
So my knee-jerk reaction is no.
Yeah.
Because I think that I'm a little traumatized by reading Time Machine and like butterfly effect. And I'd be so afraid that something that I did would like end up catastrophically changing the future. But I think a little bit of a longer answer is I think that I do a little bit of time travel every day. I often try to think about how like what I'm doing is serving like younger me or future me. And I think that that's really important and also a little magical to think about it that way, that we all get the opportunity to come travel.
All right. Why are libraries important to communities and why is our library important to you personally?
Think, thankfully, everybody that's been up here has been on the same page about why they're important and the ways that the moment you walk into the door, everybody, this is common ground. You can come from so many different backgrounds and so many different, tax brackets and cultures. And when you come into the door, you have access to everything the same way that the next person does. And I think that it's a crucial part of any community to have an area where anybody can walk in and know that they're safe and that they have access to resources and help and little vacations and books and all of the good things. The library is important to me. I am a lifelong Newburgh resident, so I grew up here. Both of my parents went back to school when I was in elementary school. So we spent a lot of time here while my dad was writing papers. My mom was writing papers, and I just got free reign upstairs, which was great for me because I was pretty advanced for reading in elementary school, and so keeping myself interested in things and being able to look at the grown-up books upstairs and the nonfiction and get to deep dive into whatever I was interested in the moment was really special. And the Carnegie Room just always has felt like very magical to me, and even like to this day, when I walk in, it just feels very magical. But yeah, I think my childhood and myself wouldn't be the same without it.
Do you have specific ideas for how you guys should contribute to the library board? And feel free to talk about your background and your experience.
I don't know necessarily specific ideas, but I think I have specific background that would help. I am fairly involved in the city in a lot of different networks. I currently serve with the Newburgh Downtown Coalition Board. I've been a part of Rotary clubs. I work for the Newburgh School District at Edwards Elementary School, and I'm a small business owner. And so I think that I have background and access to a lot of channels that could help. And I know that fundraising has been a big topic on the table tonight and needing, money and attention for that. And that is one of the things that I'm really good at. I'm really good at talking to people, and I'm really good at advocating for things that are important to me. And yeah, I think that my background, my connections, and my passion for helping and being involved in the city, that's what I bring.
Thank you.
Mhm.
How do you feel about censorship as it pertains to libraries?
This is another one that really grateful that most of the people sitting next here tonight have been mostly on the same page, and I am one of them. I don't think that it belongs in the library. I think that at its core, libraries they're here to give access to anything that anybody might need to know about. And I think historically, when censorship comes in to places like libraries or for books, it's to keep people small. And I think that it's so important, I was doing a lot of research with the American Library Association and just like how they advocate, and kind of looking back, historically, and like all the way back to like the libraries of Alexandria, like why were things being censored, and it was just to keep people small. And I think that at its core, libraries inspire people to be bigger than they are and to think bigger than they think. And I think that that is so important. So censorship is not for me.
Thank you. All right, so could you tell us about a time when you've advocated for diversity and inclusion in a workplace or in a group that you take part in?
Yeah, this one, I had a whole big story written out about, a situation at a past job. I worked in management in Portland at a coffee shop in 2020, beginning of the pandemic, and also during, really the rise of Black Lives Matter movements that were happening, and that really affected me and my employees. But it didn't feel, something about it didn't feel right to be sharing on this platform. And so I think that the way that I advocate for diversity and equity is my existence in the community. I come from a multiracial background, but my dad is from the Philippines. He immigrated here in his early 20s. And so I'm a first generation American in Newburgh in that sense. But then I also have really deep roots in Newburgh. And, you know, we live in my great grandma's house. But growing up here, I think that I have a really special view about equity and advocating for different communities and different backgrounds, what that looks like here. And I think it's getting so much better. But one thing that's really important to me in my business and in the work that I do is staying true to myself. And I think that my existence and my persistence to exist is how I advocate for inclusion and equity.
Are you comfortable sharing your perspective, even if it's not the majority opinion? And how do you feel you're able to listen? And do you feel you're able to listen to a different perspective from your own?
I am comfortable. I mean, I think that there is always a little bit of discomfort when you are faced with something that is not your immediate view. But I think that that is why it's so important that boards exist, because you get to listen to everybody's perspective and everybody's opinion on that. And you get to come together to make your decision based off of everybody's opinions. And so being a member of a board, that's pretty crucial to be able to do that. And so, yeah, I think I am able to do that.
And what is one of your favorite books and why is it a favorite?
This one, I really spent the most time on this question. And I was like on my Goodreads account, trying to look at all the books I've logged in there. And it felt impossible. So I'm going to give you two groupings. Like my childhood, when I think about what I read as a kid. And this is extra special because I was recently in the Edwards Library, which is where I went to school, and saw the books there, and it's the Dear America diaries. I loved those, and I loved especially like the Oregon Trail diary. It was they're just really fun ways to read perspectives because they're written in the way of diary entries. And so that was always really fun for me as a kid. And then not surprisingly, my current favorites are Kristen Hanna, who does a lot of historical fiction, most recently The Women. The way she writes is so immersive. My favorites are The Fourth Wind, The Great Alone, and The Women are just all very different and very involved. She does such a good job researching everything and getting reliable sources for what she's writing. And I think that it's very special. And if you haven't read anything by her, I think you should.
What was her name again?
Kristen Hanna.
This is really why we do the interviews.
I know.
Recommendations.
Recommendation.
Yeah, that's what it is.
I will say, I think The Women It's just one of the best books I've read this year. I mean, it was
So good.
really good.
It made me
That's
like go
really
in
good.
and research like other things, like to get more
Yes.
information on that. And like look
Yeah.
up women in the war at that time, and there's pictures, and so you can like really see like what they were wearing and, you know, what that was like. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions for us?
I don't.
And anything else that you want us to consider?
No, and just thank you guys for being here for such a long night, and thank you for listening to everybody and for listening to me.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
My child wants to know how you make mac and cheese creamy.
Did they forget to
Add
drain the
it
water?
I was like, where's your dad?
Go ask your dad. I just someone's gotta heat up again, I'm sure.
I made it
Yeah,
as a
just-
kid and didn't know you had to drain the water off, so I just like
Oh.
added in powder thinking that it would like coagulate,
Yeah.
right?
Probably
It
didn't
did
work so
certainly. It
well.
was so
Yeah.
gross. That's the worst. Macaroni ever.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was pretty gross.
So where's your dad? Where's your sister?
Why am I the person?
I will say this last Sunday, I got up in the morning and the house smelled so good and I went downstairs and my daughter had made cinnamon rolls for everyone. I was like, wow, kid. She's 13, but we started baking pretty young. And it was not very helpful at the beginning, I will say.
Yeah.
It was very messy and not helpful. But now she's amazing.
I have to say, this seems like the most
Okay,
incredible group of people.
this
Yeah,
is
it's
a
gonna be
great group of candidates. This is,
Really, it's just one?
yeah.
I really thought.
Well, there's other names on file, just in case.
Wow, wow.
Yeah.
Feel like I should quit because they're all good.
I know. Feel inadequate.
I know who I like the best. Should I wait? Okay.
No, they were all terrific. Their own individual ways.
This continues to be recorded public meeting, yes, just confirming.
Good reminder.
I just didn't know how dangerously I want to eat my pizza. That's actually what I was
Oh,
thinking
man.
about, so
That's true.
No, what's,
that's all right.
it is what it is.
It'll look good.
You should have brought something in, that's it. Good.
That is awesome.
Eating one of Natalie's Kit Kats. All the Halloween candy. Every day she asks for a Kit Kat.
When I was pregnant with Shoshana and we did interviews. People stayed, right? Remember? When they stayed, when we scored.
Yes, that was awkward.
Is the debate recorded?
I wish that it wasn't, because that part doesn't feel.
Yeah.
This feels kind of, so the only time we could actually have a private meeting is when we're selecting a new meeting.
Or if half of us leave the room. Remember we talked about that?
Okay.
So we write down notes. and we
If you
pass
don't
them
have to
to
do
each
it.
other.
Okay. Was our math good this time around, Hodges?
It was terrible.
Who's checking off?
Library will be closing.
I bet mine was really bad.
Yours was really bad.
Yeah. Honestly, I was like, I don't know.
Somewhere in the 20s or 30s.
I'm close, and
Yeah.
You guys are gonna respect it for this.
It was hilarious, actually.
I knew it. You guys
As I
made
was
me do
handing
it.
them in, I was
Double
like,
so sorry.
It's okay. This is why we do it. It's been a really long night for everybody. Oh, I thought I had done this batch already. Nope. Okay. Also, I think my husband is home and my son is texting me.
Oh, it's fun to get a bunch of movies.
Oh, I love it. I've already placed 2 holds tonight.
Which one, the grandma one?
No, I have that one at home. I bought that one in the Friends book sale.
My grandma wanted. me
My
to tell
grandmother
you
told me to tell you she's sorry.
Which the title already makes me wanna cry, so I. don't
Right?
think I can-
I'm sure you'll.
Yes.
It'll pop right up.
Just do grandmother and Backman and you'll get it.
ACK in there.
Yep.
Yeah.
He did The Man Called Uva.
That was the first one to do about.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the ones that fit like that, I really enjoy. Yeah, they are really different. But they make you think about it. Yeah. That's why they're good. Is your little girl, Amanda, you sign language?
Sloan or Shoshana? She's full on speaking clearly. She doesn't do as much anymore. She sometimes will do please or more, but she says so many words.
Yeah, you obviously,
All of the time.
Mary's really talking a lot now, but when she's, does something that she's not happy with about herself, go like this,
Oh.
sad, and then, sorry.
Oh,
It's like,
that's sweet.
Kind of just breaks your heart.
Yeah,
you know?
so she'll just yell at me, I cry, mom, I cry, I'm crying. Yeah, you are. That's true.
Okay, this one takes the cake so far.
Please tell me. if it's mine.
It's Suzanne.
Okay.
How do you get a 0.4? No, I've got it. I'm doing the math. It's hilarious, though. And 0.5 increments, and somehow there was a 0.4.
It's been my
Clear
favorite.
that we're very tired.
It's clear that everyone is very tired.
Yeah. How many are there?
Which one are you talking about?
5, 6,
Yeah.
7, 8.
No, it's
Time is
just,
it? I think we gotta split it up. or
Oh,
something.
I see what you mean.
yeah,
I feel the 0.5 is my legacy.
it is your
Yeah,
legacy.
Thank you so much.
I actually utilize
I
it.
actually like
I utilize it.
Cause it's like,
Yeah.
well, it's better than this, but not quite
Uh-huh.
this.
Yeah,
Mhm.
That was hilarious. Thank you.
I started my day smarter. Like, a 5:45.
Oh,
Keeping up with the tide work all day.
yeah.
Good for you.
Okay.
Did you ask people what time they wanted, or
Yeah.
did you just?
I did. I said, here are the times I've got. First come, first,
Pick one.
yeah. And nobody wanted the same time.
Wow,
It was so easy.
nice.
Do you want me to get
I can grab it.
from back there? I can grab it.
Here, you can just tell me already.
First one, I'm just saying last names, Alexander 135.5. Frisbee 137. Smucker 147.5. Bosher, B-O-U-C-H-E-R, 146.5. Oval 154. Hopkins Hubbard 157. Weigel 146. Deborah 147.5.
Sorry, say that again.
147.5.
Right, yeah. Yes. That's a fairly good. I mean, they're pretty close together. A lot of them are really pretty close together. All right,
I'm supportive of the top candidates,
so
if that's who we ended up going with. And I thought they were fantastic.
yeah, the top two scores are,
I
they're
think
my
I-
top two scores.
I
so-
would, yeah, I would say the top two scores, I would maybe lean toward Rob.
Say more.
Hmm. I,
You want your notes.
I didn't really write a lot of notes, but, I would like my notes.
I did.
Yeah, I would like my notes. Yes, I would actually. I would like my notes. Thank you.
Did anyone else want their notes? Either.
I honestly
Either
feel
or.
like I can't speak for you with the
I
recording,
know.
so.
It's, yeah, I'm looking at, I think
the second place candidate offers us. Offered me a very different perspective than I heard from some of the other candidates. And a newer, fresher, not necessarily approach, but just. Some other ways to look at things and how he uses the library, how the library is used. And it was like, okay, that's kind of fun to look at. I think the top place candidate score wise was also excellent, but I think that there wasn't quite the same, I don't know, newness or difference in that candidate.
so maybe, the second place candidate fills a need on our board that maybe there's that's for us.
I think
Yeah.
maybe, but. I think that.
He brings, something the board doesn't already have, but,
Male perspective,
skill,
I don't mean to be blunt, but. That's how I got on the board. I think.
well, that's not your only asset.
Well, no, but that was a big part. What you're trying to do is you try and get that section of the town and you have.
We want good
Yeah.
representation of our community.
You have young people, you have old, male, female, and all different, perspectives that you want. And it's not always available.
I did, his enthusiasm stands out to me, the way that he answered questions. I felt like I could see him being a part of our board and, bringing his experiences and his professional experiences and um,
And they're involved in
knowledge,
libraries
yes,
in their
and his
careers.
knowledge into, into what we have to go, our policies, our strategic planning, I can see him being like an asset. I also think the top candidate was very great too, so,
I know, I wish it wasn't that close.
Yeah.
Okay, I do need my notes now.
I think,
Yeah,
I
sorry.
think the second candidate for the top score would be a very good public speaker too. That would be advantageous to us when we are fundraising.
Which one do you want for the second or the first?
Second.
I know that strategic plan is a lot of those.
Yeah. And when you're writing a strategic plan or rewriting, it's always fun to have some different comments made. Sometimes it's two group things. I'm not saying that we are, but it could be. Yeah, different perspectives, I think, are really nice.
Yeah, I do think a fundamental question is like the season that we're in, headed into strategic planning and what you need from us, Corey, as an advisory board, if you are gonna do something like that, the big capital campaign, who would best serve us in that season? And I do think between the two candidates, the second candidate would be a better fit if it is sort of narrowly focused like that. This versus like who generally would be a good candidate for the board.
Good point. I would be fine with the second candidate. If it's my seat.
You don't get more votes.
Okay. Does anyone feel very strongly for the one that is scored the highest? Because I think that would be valid because we scored her the highest collectively. Does anyone feel strongly for the second highest scored candidate? Because we can sit here and say, we're fine, but until someone.
Well, I think Tim brought up good points about the second candidate. Making the end stuff now,
But I'm comfortable with both.
yeah,
Yeah.
so am I, but if we had a vote, one or the other.
Would it be helpful to go around?
I just thought of something. Can you use your computer? I just thought of something that I think I need to check on real quick. Because
Is there a library?
because I don't remember how term limits work for the library board. Mhm. You can serve 8 years and then how long between? So Rob has served on the board before.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Way before my time.
Uh-huh. It was a while ago. So I
Just
just,
a long time.
so I think that it,
For 8 years?
I,
At least 8 years ago.
Yeah, it was.
yeah, had
Yeah,
to, I
it's
guess
the
it
first
had to,
one.
but so we
Yeah.
would be good anyway.
I'm surprised that didn't come out.
It was two, actually.
I like him even more. Humble guy.
Yeah. I can throw his weight around.
Yeah, he didn't know I have been here before, I've done this.
This is how we're gonna do it.
Yeah.
I run into that at work all the time. Here's how we're gonna do it. Can't believe Audrey doesn't have a wireless mouse.
I don't think anybody here has a wireless mouse.
Christmas is coming.
Drop off, what, how many? 20 houses?
So I am not finding it real quick, but I don't think that, I think it was so long ago that it shouldn't be an issue. I will, if that's the board decision, then I will run that by, the city recorder just to make sure before we submit that name, if that's your choice. To,
Well, we could preface it by saying we collectively chose number 2 if there's an issue, then.
yes,
Number one.
yeah, yeah. Sounds good.
You're frowning.
Wait, should we take a vote on it?
Yes, but let me get.
Oh, I'm sorry. There you go.
Oh, I'm sure they would.
Well, it's either yes or no.
Are you trying to figure out how to word the motion? Is that what you said? Oh, okay.
That concern.
Okay.
I think we have a really fantastic library director, and I don't know that we need more of like that expertise on the board, and I'm not saying that the second candidate brings library director expertise. But just I think that is something that should be weighed in that too, of like such an excellent staff, it's such an excellent leader of the library. And I think it feels really good to have a candidate who like understands, because of their experience, the library world, right? But is that what the community needs or what the library needs, or would it be better served to have somebody whose perspective is rooted in the community differently, right? But also it's just, this is where I was like spinning in my own head because she has experience connected to libraries as well in a different context, right? So, but like,
What
is
would
that why
benefit-
we're gravitating toward both of them? Is because they're, so, which is a great thing, but also we've hired people who are exceptionally good at what they do too, so. Just put it out there as a question. I don't know that it changes anything, but. Can't remember if we've asked or if you give a perspective in past interviews. Should know we've done this a few times now, but
I don't think I have.
yeah.
Probably not.
What if we wrote down 1 or 2 and just did a paper tally just to see where we got? Is that,
Do you mean, okay,
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, I
do
mean-
you write it down or do you guys feel comfortable just raising your hand? Do you want to write it down?
I'm easy either way.
Okay,
I think just
is that more?
all in favor of number 1.
Yeah, I know we talked about number 2. Does anyone want to point out anything about number 1? The high, not number 1, the highest scoring candidate? Do you want to point out anything to make, their case for, I don't know, case, but anything that's standing out to them about
The number one
the number
Up
1
there.
highest score, yeah.
the highest score there, I think, brings a large level of enthusiasm, which is always helpful, especially going into a strategic planning session and also let's do some fundraising and get the front door fit or the front steps to work the way they should. I think that person would be a definite asset to the board. And has a lot of experience that I certainly don't. And brings another perspective from my thing. So I think that person is a very good choice.
What I like is to me, if you get kids hooked on books at an early age, you nailed it. And for what that person does in their career, I think that helps with that, and that could be very advantageous. And I think that's more important than figuring out what we do for the next 5-year plan.
Good point. Good point too.
Well,
Well, even that, it's something that you
Yeah,
need
now
to
I'm not
figure out how to get in. So, that person offers a great opportunity to get that information and help us do that. So, there we don't have two openings.
I was to say, it's a great problem to have,
It is,
right?
isn't it?
Like, Who
Instead
of,
of
who
going-
of these incredible candidates, like, that's a.
Was this his second time interviewing in a row? Did he interview last time? too?
No. No, one candidate did, but not
Okay.
him. Yeah.
I just think it's great how we as a group
Are
can
really
come up with
consistent.
that
Yeah,
and all agree on something like that. It's a good feeling.
we worked together for a while.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you
But
see
even, yeah,
how recent elections go and everything like that, and in place of that, we did this, so.
and we can all like pretty much agree,
Yeah,
or
I
like
think
have
it's
a,
great.
yeah. That's a good point.
If it
Good
helps,
encouragement, so who do we pick?
if it
If
helps,
you wanna call a vote, sorry.
No, because I honestly am not feeling like one way or the other now, like I thought it was, so. Unless somebody wants. I mean. Does anybody else would like to speak on one, either of the candidates?
I don't
Maybe
think
that's- yeah.
anybody's gonna
Okay.
have buyer's remorse.
So why is Audrey?
if it helps, the points, they're only off by like 0.5 on here and there. That's how close they both are. And throughout all the questions. So they were very, very close.
Is there anything in the way it's written about our interviewing that we have to go with you? No.
There isn't, but I think if the two of them, if across the room, we don't have a strong opinion where it's like, no, we
Okay.
actually feel really strongly that it should be the second candidate collectively, then I do think that is.
Yeah.
I agree with that. too. That
Yeah,
seems like
okay.
good.
Good point.
But so if you do have
Okay.
strong opinions about the second candidate.
Okay.
I think that would be a different conversation.
Time for a vote.
Okay. So are we voting or are we making a motion? If we do both.
So you are making you're making a motion and then you're voting on the motion. You're sorry, you're making a motion, you're asking for any further discussion, then you're calling for a vote.
I will make a motion that we go with the top candidate.
I'll second that.
Call for a vote.
All in favor?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
As long as there's no more discussion.
Oh,
It sounds like you guys are, yeah,
We already had-
and that was unanimous.
The second motion.
Yeah.
Just to clarify.
Now we agree.
I think this was the very best interview process in my whole interview.
There's excellent candidates.
Mm.
If you want to close the meeting,
oh, yes.
then
Meeting adjourned.
meeting adjourned, stopping the recording.